Let's see your true colors, sonny. Let's see your true colors, sonny.
Proud to be of service. Let's see your true colors.
Make way for the captain!
Make way for the captain.
Proud to be of service.
To be of service. Let's see your true colors, sonny. Make way for the captain.
Treasure Island, read by Christopher Roy, the Barbarian Lunatic, with occasional remarks.
It's just, there's too much chaos in me. 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 There's too much chaos in me.
Okay, listen. Hey, tell me something. Yeah, I know. Man, I just cleaned my entire apartment. It's crazy. I really enjoy also listening to my own recordings. I don't know, I just to myself, I like myself. Which is why I can't share myself. Because even if there are things where I find they're still dirty, I continue to clean myself. So yeah, I just had an incredibly hard 2 weeks. I'm just saying, I don't want to talk too much. I am doubting whether I should read the entire Treasure Island book. Because this stuff is sometimes like really killing me. I'm not sure if you can understand this. It's not really, I don't like just reading something. Because this book is also longer. I don't see the benefit of me reading books to people. Because this is really tedious hard work. I mean, if I wouldn't be doing other things, at the same time, maybe if I just stop talking about it and just start reading. Because how long is this really? Okay, it's really long. I mean, it's more than 200 pages. And I just got to chapter 2. So I have to also find a way that works for me. I will no longer read the entire book. Well, what am I gonna do then? I really don't know, man. I just want to be free of doing this. I've read this already, but I lost interest while reading it. I should continue to read this occasionally and not put too much pressure on myself. So now I have a bit of time. I just finished the last art, you know, sketch-based art. Now I have to put them all. I decided to make one video with all the art that is based on sketches. I also made a lot of just digital art. And it turned out it's about 824. So I now put it into a slideshow. Then I'll add some music to it. I don't know, tomorrow I have a hike, I don't know what else to do. I get bored just sitting holding planks. So if I've still got a bit of juice left, I simply have to progress. If this is really such a long book and I'm supposed to read this, right, so maybe if I just look at how long is each chapter. Okay, most chapters aren't much longer than like 7 to 8 pages. So if I take it a chapter by a chapter, then it's really not that bad. You see here, every chapter is roughly 7 pages, 6 pages, and then it's okay. If I see the entire book, this is also how you have to take life. So you have to also adapt. You know, you continue to change. People here try to act like they don't change because this is a society of clingers. So you cannot identify with them because they're all clingers. They cling to their titles. You know, a true healer is ready when he's ready. But here, if you want to be a doctor, you just go and study and then you're unleashed, right? You just have to have good grades and then you can operate on people. But with healers, it doesn't work like this. With healers, first have to learn how to heal themselves. Doctors usually operate on others. There's a huge difference. A healer first has to know how to heal himself. And from that experience, right, there's no books he really has to read. He just has to learn how to heal himself in a natural way. Here is just about, you see, I just want to speak freely. Okay. I have read this already, but the recording was a bit off because I keep getting annoyed of doing this. I know my content can give people stability, but what I really want is actually to write books so that people can buy them, so that I can continue to buy peanut mousse and survive. It's not just the peanut mousse. That's just the most luxurious thing that I happen to like to eat. But it's not the only thing, of course, that continues to feed you. Chapter 2. Maybe there's also something I have to adjust about breath. I'm not so sure anymore I actually need that much food. Black Dog appears and disappears. It was not very long after this that there occurred the first of the mysterious events that rid us at last of the captain. Though not, as you will see, of his affairs, it was a bitter cold winter, with long hard frosts and heavy gales. And it was plain from the first that my poor father was little likely to see the spring. He sank daily, and my mother and I had all the inn upon our hands, and were kept busy enough without paying much regard to our unpleasant guest. It was one January morning, very early, a pinching, frosty morning, the cove all grey with hoarfrost, the ripple lapping softly on the stones, the sun still low and only touching the hilltops and shining far to seaward. The captain had risen earlier than usual and set out down the beach, his cutlass swinging under the broad skirts of the old blue coat, his brass telescope under his arm, his hat tilted back upon his head. I remember his breath hanging like smoke in his wake as he strode off. And the last sound I heard of him as he turned the big rock was a loud snort of indignation, as though his mind was still running upon Dr. Livesey. Well, Mother was upstairs with Father, and I was laying the breakfast table against the captain's return, when the parlor door opened and a man stepped in on whom I had never set my eyes before. He was a pale, tallowy creature, wanting 2 fingers of the left hand. And though he wore a cutlass, he did not look much like a fighter. I had always my eye open for seafaring men with one leg or two, and I remembered this one puzzled me. He was not sailorly, and yet he had a smack of the sea about him too. I asked him what was for his service, and he said he would take rum. But as I was going out of the room to fetch it, he sat down upon a table and motioned me to draw near. I paused where I was with my napkin in my hand. "Come here, sonny," says he, "come nearer here." I took a step nearer. "Is this here table for my mate Bill?" he asked with a kind of leer. I told him I did not know his mate Bill, and this was for a person who stayed in our house, whom we called the captain. "The captain? Well," said he, "my mate Bill would be called the captain as like as not. He has a cut on one cheek and a mighty pleasant way with him, particularly in drink, has my mate Bill. We'll put it for argument like that your captain has a cut on one cheek, and we'll put it, if you like, that that cheek's the right one. Oh well, I told you. Now is my mate Bill in this here house?" I told him he was out walking. "Which way, sonny, which way's he gone?" And when I had pointed out the rock, and told him how the captain was likely to return and how soon, and answered a few other questions, "Ah," said he, "this'll be as good as drink to my mate Bill." The expression of his face as he said these words was not at all pleasant, and I had my own reasons for thinking that the stranger was mistaken, even supposing he meant what he said. But it was no affair of mine, I thought, and besides it was difficult to know what to do. The stranger kept hanging about just outside the inn door, peering round the corner like a cat waiting for a mouse. Once I stepped out myself into the road, but he immediately called me back, and as I did not obey quick enough for his fancy, a most horrible change came over his tallowy face, and he ordered me in with an oath that made me jump. As soon as I was back again, he returned to his former manner, half fawning, half sneering, patted me on the shoulder, told me I was a good boy, and he had taken quite a fancy to me. "I have a son of my own," said he, "as like you as 2 blocks, and he's all the pride of my heart. But the great thing for boys is discipline, sonny, discipline. Now, if you had sailed along of Bill, you wouldn't have stood there to be spoke to twice, not you. That was never Bill's way, nor the way of sich as sailed with him. And here, sure enough, is my mate Bill with a spyglass under his arm. Bless his old heart, to be sure. You and me'll just go back into the parlor, sonny, and get behind the door, and we'll give Bill a little surprise. Bless his heart, I say again." So saying, the stranger backed along with me into the parlor and put me behind him in the corner so that we were both hidden by the open door. I was very uneasy and alarmed, as you may fancy, and it rather added to my fears to observe that the stranger was certainly frightened himself. He cleared the hilt of his cutlass and loosened the blade in the sheath, and all the time we were waiting there he kept swallowing as if he felt what we used to call a lump in the throat. At last in strode the captain, slammed the door behind him without looking to the right or left, and marched straight across the room to where his breakfast awaited him. "Bill," said the stranger in a voice that I thought he had tried to make bold and big. The captain spun round on his heel and fronted us. All the brown had gone out of his face, and even his nose was blue. He had the look of a man who sees a ghost, or the evil one, or something worse, if anything can be, and upon my word, I felt sorry to see him, all in a moment, turn so old and sick. "Come, Bill, you know me, you know an old shipmate, Bill, surely," said the stranger. The captain made a sort of gasp. "Black dog," said he. "And who else?" returned the other, getting more at his ease. black dog as ever was, come forth to see his old shipmate Billy at the Admiral Benbow Inn. Ah, Bill, we have seen a sight of times, us two, since I lost them 2 talents, holding up his mutilated hand. Now look here, said the captain, you've run me down, here I am, well, then speak up, what is it? That's you, Bill, returned Black Dog, you're in the right of it, Billy. Yeah, you see, it's like saying Billy to the captain, it's a form of disrespect. I'm just saying. I'll have a glass of rum from this dear child here, as I've took such a liking to, and we'll sit down, if you please, and I'll talk square like old shipmates. When I returned with the rum, they were already seated on either side of the captain's breakfast table. Black Dog next to the door, and sitting sideways so as to have one eye on his old shipmate and one, as I thought, on his retreat. He bade me go and leave the door wide open. None of your keyholes for me, sonny, he said, and I left them together and retired into the bar. For a long time, though, I certainly did my best to listen. I could hear nothing but a low gabbling, but at last the voices began to grow higher, and I could pick up a word or two, mostly oaths, from the captain. No, and an end of it, he cried once, and again, if it comes to swinging, swing all, say I. Then all of a sudden there was a tremendous explosion of oaths and other noises. The chair and table went over in a lump. A clash of steel followed, and then a cry of pain, and the next instant I saw Black Dog in full flight and the captain hotly pursuing, both with drawn cutlasses and the former streaming blood from the left shoulder. Just at the door the captain aimed at the fugitive one last tremendous cut, which would certainly have split him to the chine had it not been intercepted by our big signboard of Admiral Benbow. You may see the notch on the lower side of the frame to this day. The blow was the last of the battle. Once out upon the road, Black Dog, in spite of his wound, showed a wonderful clean pair of heels and disappeared over the edge of the hill in half a minute. The captain, for his part, stood staring at the signboard like a bewildered man. Then he passed his hand over his eyes several times and at last turned back into the house. "Jim," says he, "rum!" And as he spoke, he reeled a little and caught himself with one hand against the wall. "Are you hurt?" cried I. "Rum," he repeated. "I must get away from here. Rum, rum." I ran to fetch it, but I was quite unsteadied by all that had fallen out, and I broke one glass and fouled the tap, and while I was still getting in my own way, I heard a loud fall in the parlor, and running in beheld the captain lying full length upon the floor. At the same instant my mother, alarmed by the cries and fighting, came running downstairs to help me. Between us we raised his head. He was breathing very loud and hard, but his eyes were closed and his face a horrible color. Dearie me," cried my mother, "what a disgrace upon the house, and your poor father's sake." In the meantime we had no idea what to do to help the captain, nor any other thought but that he had got his death hurt in the scuffle with the stranger. I got the rum, to be sure, and tried to put it down his throat, but his teeth were tightly shut and his jaws as strong as iron. It was a happy relief for us when the door opened and Dr. Livesey came in on his visit to my father. "Oh, doctor," we cried, "what shall we do? Where is he wounded?" "Wounded? A fiddlestick's end," said the doctor. "No more wounded than you or I. The man has had a stroke, as I warned him." I'd like to intercede here because a stroke can also be a result of an emotional wound. And what I find is that emotional wounds are, of course, often the reason why we injure ourselves further. because we simply like to sometimes recreate the pain instead of letting it go. But that's what I meant with doctors. They usually don't look at all this emotional stuff. I mean, they're willing to cut people open. Yeah, I'd never do that. Unless I were in a situation, you see, I wouldn't make it my business to cut people open. I would say, well, if you're living in such a toxic world, then you just have to know how to keep yourself safe and not injure yourself. So I don't want to stitch back together people who died in a car crash, because why were you driving so fast anyway? I mean, you have to get this. At the moment, we have what this kind of overpopulation is basically, I mean, let's say 90% of the people living today, or the spirits, are basically of a low quality. So mass production means also lower quality, and the people who consume this are also of less quality. So I, as an individual, will never probably be as high in quality as though, you know, as a, okay, this is getting a bit sketchy, but you know what I'm saying. I don't want to sound like someone who's, I'm not saying do away with them, I'm just saying that's just a fact. Spirits today, their energy is just flowing into consumption. You work for money, we've already had that, and then you buy your goods with it. What does this have to do with the chapter? Well, back then, you had a completely different way of life. I mean, it was just a different way of life. You had no cars, okay, you had carriages, you had horses, you had ships, but you had no engines, you had no phones. You know, winters still meant something. When you survived a winter, that still meant something. You know, you'd have like 40 winters on your back. That really meant something. Today, winter means nothing unless you make it mean something again, which means turning off your radiator in winter will toughen you up, and that will prepare you for a very intense life. And then you will become a true spirit again. And then you can die in peace because you've known hardship. That's why I like reading this book, because it reminds us of, it used to be different. I just don't like doctors very much. I mean, this doctor, this is a strange thing, I can identify better with the captain or with the pirates than with, let's say, Dr. Livesey. That's me. Because Dr. Livesey is a clinger. He has his status, he wants society to prosper. You know, the captain just wants to continue living, but he doesn't really need society. You know, he doesn't want this, I need a house. He's more like a vagabond. Which is why, to me, I like going hiking, because it gives me the chance to, it's like my idea of a hero journey. You know, I leave my comfort zone, I push through a hike, I come back. That's a challenge. If I'd be living at the ocean, I'd probably look forward to, you know, shipping, like sailing. But everything's kind of weird and controlled at the moment, so you cannot really do anything super free. So there are a lot of restraints, so you have to find your way to get your... Because there weren't just pirates who were all scoundrels. There were probably quite decent pirate ships. For some, piracy probably also meant just, you know, not just raping women and just randomly killing people. I mean, you could be a pirate to other pirates. And then you're kind of like, you're just making sure there aren't that many really bad pirates around. So you can have honor as a pirate. You can probably be awakened. So I'm not really fond of this whole idea of whaling and just killing whales and stuff. So to me is also trying to live a bit like a Viking. So the reason also why I keep pushing my content, why I also submit to doing things like this here and pouring my heart into this, but also learning along the way, you know, what is the best diet for leading such a life, for being a content creator, for delivering content. What's the best diet? Like, I know this will take a lot of time, which is why I have to start now. So right now I'm actually, you know what I'm saying. I mean, I could just be reading this. I don't have to. Oh wow, there's only one more page. Hey, cool. Okay, but you get the point I'm trying to make. You don't have to be, okay, I just read this about that the whole alpha thing with the wolves, that it's not really true, somebody said. And then I saw a video on YouTube. He said, yeah, there is no alpha. And that what they discovered with wolves, they say, yeah, there is no alpha. And then they gave all these examples from society. They show these men, also actors in movies, and then they say, you know, everybody tries to act like an alpha by being super oppressive and dominant. But he says it's a lie. Research has even shown that there is no alpha. Well, research usually only shows what you're expecting to find. So if somebody first says there is an alpha, then others just want to disprove it, just to get their own piece of the fame, right? My belief is there is an alpha, but if you're looking in society and amongst actors, there are clearly hierarchies. But if you're looking at an actor, you know, this is just something that runs with money. So sure, you can buy people, but the idea of a pack is there are leaders. But let's say if you're living in a commune, then you could say we need strong men, so each man is also its own alpha. So in that sense, you can agree a wolf pack is a family unit. And if a younger wolf or a different wolf tries to undermine the authority of the strongest male, yeah, okay, then he may get support of the female dog. So a commune should consist of also individual men that all have their own abilities, and nobody's pushing around anyone because they're working together for a communal goal, which is survival, teaching children to be active in the community, and to never push off responsibilities. If you can take responsibility, take as much as you can, but you start small. Which is why war is a really bad thing, to a certain degree, because it takes away a lot of the men. And then a lot of children grow up not having fathers or grandfathers. But what's bad? So we just have to learn to figure it out again. What a man is, how this works. A lot of this goes also by feeling. Okay, wounded a fiddlestick's end, said the doctor. No more wounded than you or I. The man has had a stroke, as I warned him. Yeah, I don't like this guy. Now, Mrs. Hawkins, just you run upstairs to your husband and tell him, if possible, nothing about it. For my part, I must do my best to save this fellow's trebly worthless life, and Jim here will get me a basin. So if it's dishonest, why do it? He just thinks it's part of his reputation. But it's not very, they all call themselves Christians of some sort, right? But they're not really, he could also be, he doesn't have to be overly cheerful to the guy, but he can still be compassionate. He can still see the child inside. Just another suffering soul. So the idea of a commune is also to assist each other through suffering. So be compassionate with your parents a little. That's a really important message. Help them keep their space clean. Make sure they don't end up in some retiring home, right? You have to have time for this. If your desire to watch movies and go to have fun somewhere, then I tell you to stop watching movies and take this life a bit more serious, because you will feel ashamed of yourself. And you're going to try to hide it under all kinds of stupid excuses. Nobody needs a dog. A dog is often, people say, yeah, you can learn to take responsibility. No. Everyone who buys a dog because they don't want to be alone. How can you learn to take responsibility for how you feel and yourself if you can't even be alone? You see what I'm saying here? You have to learn to be alone. So don't buy a dog. If you have one, don't ever get another one. It's an escape from yourself and your responsibilities as a human. What good is it to us if your dog listens? If you cannot hear what spirit is telling you? You should hold your ground without a dog. A dog should not do your channeling. Dogs wagging tails, that's a form of energy transmutation. You should be doing this yourself. For that you need to harden. What's the benefit to me if you as a man train your dog? You should be trained. You should be as tough as the dog. You should hold your plants, do your barefoot hiking, and do your animal movement and stuff. For you, it's yoga, it's being balanced. What is it to me if your dog is super tough, I'm a man. I'm looking for equals. I don't need dogs in my community. It's just a waste of time. We need true men, true women. And they can only, you have to go into nature. Where you are, you have to make it a challenge. Find your way into nature, go swimming throughout the year, build this up as much as you can. That's what I'm doing. Go hiking, if you're living somewhere in the desert, well, find your challenges there. Find water holes, I don't know, work with these things. Figure out what the desert has to offer if you're basically living in a desert. Just discover nature and try to be as much barefoot as you can, but build it up. And you're self-responsible. That's very important. Don't lump on anything on me. I'm just trying to help, but I'm telling you, do it only if you want to do it and you're responsible. Otherwise, you'll just blame it onto me, and then, I have to ignore any lawsuit that you think you can file against me to take down my content just because you're wasting your life bickering on what other people, never gave you. Instead of just working hard to realize yourself, you're just trying to destroy others. What's the point in that? It's such a waste of time, You could be really standing up for your own ideas about life, but because you're afraid, you don't do it. So A lot of people are just jealous of people who have a bit of freedom, and then they're just trying to destroy it. So yeah, it's just the way it is. From my perspective, when I got back with the basin, the doctor had already ripped by the captain's sleeve and exposed his great sinewy arm. It was tattooed in several places. Here's luck, a fair wind, and Billy Bones his fancy were very neatly and cleanly executed on the forearm. Here's luck? You know, that's really a man that lived, man. A fair wind and Billy Bones his fancy. Yeah, okay. He just liked to get the stuff done his way. Were very neatly and cleanly executed on the forearm. And but you're gonna make a lot of enemies if you always have to push through your way. And up near the shoulder there was a sketch of a gallows and a man hanging from it, done, as I thought, with great spirit. You see, Jim has a bit of a liking. I mean, he's kind of a father figure, of course. I mean, his father is more like, you know, he has a restaurant, he just does this kind of a job. But then Bill is like an old sea dog. I mean, he's weather stained. Yeah. Prophetic, said the doctor, touching this picture with his finger. And now, Master Billy Bones, if that be your name, we'll have a look at the color of your blood. Jim, he said, are you afraid of blood? No, sir, said I. Well then, said he, you hold the basin. And with that he took his lancet and opened a vein. Only for what reason? You know, sometimes they do things that actually weakens. It's just super weird. You know, some doctors, they just think they have to do stuff. I mean, in this situation, what good is draining the blood from a man that's already weak? I mean, he's not been bit by a snake or something. So it's all this, the idea of leeching. If you also look at A Song of Ice and Fire, where they always leeched the son of Liza Aaron, they should have just brought the boy into nature, made him hike barefoot, but the woman was obviously insane. Continues to try to bind the child to her because she was in a way living off the child. It's just a toxic relationship, which is why they should have separated the child from the mother to a certain degree. But for that you also need a strong man. And in a way you also have to put a woman a bit into place. I mean, leeching just, that's the leech. Anyone who leeches children is a leech. I'm just saying. So that's the child doctor. I'm just saying, they just live off children. It's disgusting. Parents should know what they're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, then don't be a parent. And if you are one, then learn, do your learning. Start where you are, and then reduce however much you engage with the system. That's just my message. Prophetic, said the doctor. Okay, he doesn't really like the guy. No, sir, said I. Well then, said he, you hold the basin, open a vein. A great deal of blood was taken before the captain opened his eyes and looked mistily about him. First, how does this work? First he recognized the doctor with an unmistakable frown. Then his glance fell upon me and he looked relieved. But suddenly his color changed and he tried to raise himself, crying, "Where's Black Dog?" "There is no Black Dog here," said the doctor, "except what you have on your own back. You have been drinking rum. You have had a stroke, precisely as I told you. And I have just very much against my own will dragged you head foremost out of the grave. Now, Mr. Bones..." "That's not my name," he interrupted. Much I care, returned the doctor. "It's the name of a buccaneer It's the name of a buccaneer of my acquaintance, and I call you by it. Oh, damn it. I don't know who's saying that. I'm just gonna read this, like, just with my voice. It's the name of a buccaneer of my acquaintance, and all I call you by it for the sake of shortness, and what I have to say to you is this: one glass of rum won't kill you, but if you take one, you'll take another and another, and I stake my wig if you don't break off short, you'll die. Do you understand that? Die and go to your own place, like the man in the Bible. Come now, make an effort, I'll help you to your bed for once. So I was just facing this idea of drinking wine again. But I feel it cannot be done. Okay. Between us, with much trouble, we managed to hoist him upstairs and laid him on his bed, where his head fell back on the pillow, as if he were almost fainting. Now mind you, said the doctor, I clear my conscience, the name of rum for you is death. And with that he went off to see my father, taking me with him by the arm. This is nothing, said he, as soon as he had closed the door. I have drawn blood enough to keep him quiet a while. He should lie for a week where he is. That is the best thing for him and you, but another stroke would settle him. Okay. That was chapter 2 of part 1. I think I've said enough. I'll send you on your way. You know, I also have to see as a content creator what I actually give to people. Like I said, I give stability. Plus, to me, this is literally beneficial because it doesn't go to waste. It also feeds my podcast. It also goes onto 2 platforms, which makes YouTube and Odyssey.com. And if people like it and they say, hey, I'll actually like this guy reading it, I know on Odyssey you can support creators by giving them credits. So, you know, you just have to be open for finding your own way in content creation. I believe I can raise people from a depression because I know I have a lot of strength. It's just hard to invest it into so much online stuff because you always feel so alone all the time. Which is why my goal is, which is why I continue to hike. And I also say to people here where I live locally, I say, hey, you can join me. That's the hike. It's 8 to 12 hours. We're gonna hike, we're gonna go swimming. And I'll guide you through it. So it's also my training to be a father, to be a leader in some way. But you also have to know how to listen. And now I have to render the second part of the slideshow, so another 300 pictures. That took me hours to do. This is really crazy, man. But I like it. The idea came a couple of days ago. I suddenly started working on... I went to my hard drive and started to select all the images that are based on sketches, and then I reduced them in the size a little because I saved them in really high quality on my hard drive, which is 6,000 to 4,000 pixels, uncompressed PNGs, so each image has 96.2 megabyte. But to make a slideshow out of it, it doesn't have to be that long, so I saved them as JPEGs in half the size, so 3,000 by 2,000 pixels as JPEGs, and then each image only has about 2 megabyte, and it's enough to see what it's about. It's enough. And now I'm putting them all, the 825 or something, or 24, putting them all into this slideshow. Then I'll put it on Caden Live, add sound. Yeah. All right, cheerio, man, woman, spiritual conspirator against whatever suppresses us. So liberation. So yeah, look for boundaries. Life will push you into shape. If you really want to be of service, this is what you can do today as a conscious being, right? And then also it keeps you alive for a possibly very long time. Cheerio, or cheers to those who suffer.